Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again, this time to do something a little different. We've had lots of conversations about doing it, but for whatever reason, it's always kind of fallen off or just didn't happen. But expanding the push a little bit more because we're just psychotic about wrestling. We can't get enough of it. So we've added one more kind of video. For this video, we are going to be discussing and reacting to the TNA PLE that took place last night in Lowell, Massachusetts on October 12th, 2025. Obviously, this is a little easier when half the talent there is that of WWE recent talent. So we're familiar with quite a bit of talent that was on this card. Obviously, we don't watch TNA on a weekly basis, but I think keep up with them just by kind of default with NXT's partnership with them. And so I think just for the card alone, seeing all the talent that was on there, I think it could potentially be one we do every once in a while. I don't think we'll ever do like a full blown series like weekly recap or doing every single PLE, but for this one, just felt like it was too good to pass up. So with that, we will do it just the same as we always do. We'll go through each match, kind of discuss our reactions, and give it a rating, and then a rating overall. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the opening contest that kicked off Bound for Glory, and that was Steve Maclin going up against Frankie Kazarian for that TNA International Championship. KP. Oh, as far as the opening contest goes, how do you feel like this one went? And having Frank Kazarian attempt to defend that TNA International Championship, how'd you like it?
Yeah, not a bad opening contest here to kick off TNA Bound to Glory. So this is, I think, the first TNA PLE match I probably watched in, I don't know, probably a good 15, 20 years or so. I actually started watching TNA a long time before I started watching WWE. Just happened to watch it, like, just casually on like a just like a Saturday morning, whatever it used to be on, sort of thing. We used to watch with my brother, and we see like some odd like PLE matches as well back then. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, this is sort of like a the first step of me in quite some time. And honestly, yeah, not a bad way to get back into the rhythm of things. To be fair, TNA International Championship on the line, Frankie Kazarian putting it up against Steve Maclin, and this one seemed to have a pretty nice feel to it in terms of just the animosity between both men. We even had Steve Macklin's mother who was at ringside, and she was given the middle fingers up there. So there was obviously a lot of animosity and heat going into this one between the two men and their respective families and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of cool to see. So it seemed to have like quite like an important sort of feel to it from the start, which is great. And then yeah, just the match itself generally was quite good. It was competitive, back and forth, had a good flow to it. Maybe it was a little short. Maybe, I don't know. That's just like the only thing I've had like really like nitpick sort of thing. But it was a good, decent enough match to kick things off and to get into a little bit of a rhythm with it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Steve Maclin winning this one eventually over Frankie Kazarian and taking that TNA International Championship. Yeah, I didn't think there was anything overly bad about this one. It wasn't anything standout, but it was just a good, solid, decent first matchup to begin with. So yeah, not a bad start to Bound to Glory. What did you make of this opening contest then, Nick?
Yeah, I'll pick off basically right where you left off, and that is it wasn't a bad contest. It wasn't a great one either. Just kind of in the middle. That sunset bomb outside the ring, that was a pretty nice spot, and then. Steve Macklin's mother telling Kazarian, he's number one. That was a funny bit as well. With Maclin getting the win and getting a new international champion to kick things off, it's obviously a nice way to start the PLE here. And I think a bit short, maybe perhaps, and just playing it a bit safe. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel with every match here. So I think it was just kind of a good enough match for what it was. I gave this one a 6 out of 10. Getting into the next match, which has Tessa Blanchard with Victoria Crawford going up against Gia Miller with Judy Threat. Gia, normally a backstage broadcaster, having her first match in TNA, and perhaps that kind of explains the route they went with this one. I'll let you hit your kind of highlights of this one first, but yeah, this one didn't really set well with me. But what did you make of it?
Yeah, this isn't a match that I think is going to go down, as one that we're going to go back and watch because it's a classic or anything. It was maybe a little underwhelming as such. But I guess when you look at the competitors in the ring, you've got one lady who's obviously, you know, not known for being an in-ring competitor, someone who's normally a backstage correspondent, interviews, whatever. Yeah, I think it's there's only so much you can really ask for in a matchup like this. Tessa, who's obviously got you know, a lot of history, you know, as an in-ring superstar. Generally speaking, the match was kind of sloppy and it just was a bit meh. It didn't really do anything for me. It was pretty quick as well. Don't think this one lasted more than a good like 4 or 5 minutes. There was a whole bit of, you know, outside interference and stuff. So that was obviously going on throughout the entire contest. We had a little bit of Victoria Crawford, Jody Threat. They were sort of like, you know, having their respective in-ring superstars backs and stuff throughout the contest. And yeah, there was a bit of, you know, distraction on that sense, take away from the in-ring action. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't really a great match as such. It was okay at best, and you can't expect too much. You can't demand too much from somebody who isn't an in-ring superstar. And I think Gia did look a little bit, you know, green. I think it's safe to say. So yeah, you know, it's one of those things basically. Even the finish was like a little bit underwhelming as such. Like I was like, oh, that's it, it's over, sort of thing. So yeah, it was like a roll of quarters that was used from Tessa. On the head of Gia, whilst Miller had Blanchard in a powerbomb style position, and then just like, you know, once that connection's been made with the roll of quarters, she just goes for a cover. So it did feel a little bit, you know, lackluster, I suppose. But yeah, I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Didn't really do much for me. So yeah, one of those things basically. Got anything more positive to say about this matchup, Nick, or is it basically just singing from the same hymn sheet?
Yeah, pretty much all the same from me. I think, you know, you make good points in that obviously this is a first contest, you know, in ring. So, no, I wasn't expecting a classic by any means. But the story at least felt like it was there, like the babyface kind of story from Gia. Obviously, I thought that was a nice bit. I think they could have kind of capitalized on that more. You don't have to, you know, go hell to leather the entire match, but could at least have played on that a little bit more. And so it felt like they kind of went the opposite direction because if it was a first match. The story, you know, the takeaway of the match felt like it was more about Victoria and Threat than it was anything else. So didn't love that. I feel like that kind of took away the opportunity from Gia, and perhaps, you know, maybe this shouldn't have been on a PLE. I think maybe that's a discussion they could have had. But yeah, and then the finish, the ref just blatantly ignoring her messing with the turnbuckles, I guess. But for whatever reason, you know, had a roll of quarters over there. Yeah, this is definitely the low point of the PLE in my opinion. So for whatever that's worth, but I did give this one a 4 out of 10. Just not much to go by. And again, maybe that's on me for expecting a bit more. But obviously, we don't watch on a weekly basis, so we just have the build that they give us before the match. So with that, we will swiftly move on to the next match. And I think this one's more very topical, if you will. That's for sure. But a Bound for Glory Gauntlet, and the winner gets a TNA title shot of their choosing over the next year. So kind of combining like a Royal Rumble with a Money in the Bank kind of concept here. Starting off with Li Yang Lee and Mara Shane, both former WWE talents, obviously. And so as this match is kicking off, I'm thinking, oh, cool. They'll probably have one of these for the men's and women's, you know, similar to the Royal Rumbles. But nope, all the same match, men and women all together. Intergender Royal Rumble, or Battle Royal, if you will. 20 participants, well, 20 kind of. The Rascals got counted as one competitor, so that was interesting. Perhaps with Santino in charge, it does explain a bit there. But yeah, and then the ending. KP, lots of talking points on this one. How'd you like this one?
Yeah, this isn't a traditional sort of like a, you know, rumble as we would normally be familiar with in the likes of WWE. Very unique dynamic, you know, mixing things together here with that sort of like Money in the Bank style cash in as you described it. Yeah, I don't know. It was quite a refreshing contest, you know, women and men, you know, together competing all under one match. I thought it was kind of refreshing, not gonna lie. I quite liked the you know, the competitive stuff between both genders, and just generally how they just sort of like worked it all out. I just thought it had a nice little flow to it, to be fair. It's quite entertaining throughout most of the matchup. It was pretty fun. Yeah, there was just a whole lot going on. Like you said, Rascals counting as one entrant, which is crazy, 3-1. We had Santana Morella, the director of Authority. He was, getting involved at one point as well as an entrant and sort of like recreating his Royal Rumble elimination from all those years ago. That sort of thing. Yeah, there were loads of spots here. We had Poison Mist, and that was from Rosemary. And then we had a very unique and interesting finish. So once it gets out the two men, once everybody else has been eliminated here, then it turns into a regular one-on-one matchup where pinfalls and submissions decide the winner. So naturally speaking, you're looking for a winner here out of those two men. It didn't quite go down that way though in this one because you have Nick Nemeth and Frankie Kazarian, who was in his second match of the night, and they would basically get to a point where they pin each other. And Santana Morella decides that both men are the winners for the first time in this match's history. So yeah, that was a pretty unpopular decision with the fans. They were booing like crazy at that, so they were not happy about the call and the decision on that front. Maybe they wanted one particular person out of the two to win, or maybe they just didn't want one of them to win. But yeah, it was very, very unpopular. There was a lot of negativity from the crowd towards that call from Morella. But yeah, it was it was a fun match. We even had a appearance from a social media content creator in BDE, so he was involved there as well. So yeah, it was just a lot. There was a lot to take from this one. Lots of past WWE talent as well, and yeah, just generally quite a fun match. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was entertaining, and yeah, there's a lot to take from it. Loads of talking points, and especially that finish. It was a bit of a wild one. What did you make of it? Were you a fan of the double finish, or you like the fans? Do you think it was a bit unpopular?
So yeah, for the actual match itself, I thought it was a really refreshing concept as well, and I kind of worried that the women would kind of get you know made to look weak, but honestly, they weren't. They kind of held their own, men and women alike, kind of eliminating some here and some there. So I thought that was all pretty refreshing and some really cool spots as you hit on as well. And as for the finish, obviously we've seen WWE do something similar, both incident or accidentally and not. But for this occasion, obviously planned, having both of them get the pen with the multiple referees in the ring and Santino, doing his best bit there, taking the mic and acting like I am assuming the crowd was thinking, okay, well, he's going to make this right. We're going to have we're going to go to another fall or something. But he just announces that both of them are the winner. And as you alluded to, the crowd not happy there. And but honestly, I'm kind of on the opposite side. I thought that was a creative finish. Obviously, it hadn't been done before. And then the way they kind of were both trying to grab the trophy on the way out, I thought that was pretty funny as well. So yeah, I actually was a fan of both the match, the concept of the match and the finish. Now, obviously, both Kazarian and Nemeth have an opportunity to have a title match. So I'm actually kind of for that. I think, thinking similarly along like WWE lines, to think of having two people hold that Money in the Bank briefcase, I think that would be an interesting concept as well. But yeah, I like it, and I'll be curious to see how they end up going through with that. But yeah, I thought this was a really fun bout. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10. Getting into the next match, we have Indi Hartwell going up against Kelani Jordan. She is defending that TNA Knockouts World Championship. AP, what'd you make of the actual contest?
For the majority, I thought this was a pretty good matchup. Yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. It had loads of back and forth. Both these women really didn't sort of like shy away from showcasing what they can really do. Just genuinely had a nice flow to it, and for the majority, it was exactly that. Yeah, just Kelani and Indi seemed to sort of like feed off each other, and yeah, I think they were both pretty much into it just equally. There were lots of close moments as well, some near falls and things. Yeah, I thought it was a good matchup, and like you said, Indi Hartwell being sort of a heavily sort of known to have been undefeated at this point, and she was 6-0 in singles competitions and stuff, and obviously now she's not getting that loss here to Kelani Jordan. Yeah, Kelani would avoid a diving elbow drop, and then would hit her one-of-a-kind moonsault to get the win in the end. So, yeah, it's a pretty routine finish, I suppose, really. Just Kelani going through the motions to get the victory. What I did note, though, is, and this is quite an interesting topic here, whether I'm right or wrong, but I noticed at one point where Indi Hartwell was looking to lift up Kelani Jordan. Now, no, under normal circumstances, I would think that this was probably just, Indi not having the strength to do so. but I didn't get that vibe from watching it. I don't know if Kelani was sandbagging. I'm not entirely sure if that was the situation here. That is a very topical, accusation there. But I don't know. It gave me the feeling like she was. So I'm not entirely sure if that's accurate. If it's not, obviously, my apologies, hands up. But for someone like Indi Hartwell, I'm sure she can lift Kelani Jordan no problem. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. That was just the one little bit of the matchup that just sort of stood out to me, is just to be like, didn't match the flow of the match at all. That was just a really sticking out like a sore thumb situation. So again, I could be completely wrong, and hands up if I am, but it I don't know, it seemed really unnatural, and I'm not entirely sure what that was about. And like I said, it could just be Indi just really just couldn't get her up at one point, and that was that's just all it was. And fair enough, maybe it was that, but I don't know. It just seemed a little bit odd to me, and I think that just really just disrupted a little bit of the middle of the match type thing. If it was sort of like midway through the contest, but besides that, yeah, it was good. Like I said, it was competitive, it was back and forth, and it did a good job. So yeah, Kelani Jordan getting the win and ending Indi's undefeated streak, very impressive. So yeah, you see what I did there. But yeah, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Despite that bit in the middle, I thought it was still pretty good. So yeah, I did enjoy it. Just a little bit dubious about what happened in that little bit of middle section. Maybe you can have your own say on this one and let us know what you think about it. But I know it's a pretty bold thing to say. But yeah, how did you find this matchup? Did you enjoy it? Obviously, you got two very talented women and individuals here, so I thought they put on a pretty good match.
Well, first of all, I did not pick up on the sandbagging accusation or anything like that. I didn't really get that vibe. I did notice, however, that the match wasn't super clean by any means. Wasn't perfect in that regard. But I feel like because I've basically been watching TNA pay-per-views ever since the NXT partnership with them, I do feel like Indi, since leaving WWE, her style is just a bit different, and I think its intention is to be kind of more like fighting like a big talent, kind of like Raquel kind of has been doing. I think that's kind of the style she's going for, but for whatever reason it just doesn't gel quite as well. I feel like her matches in WWE were much better than I've seen in WWE, and it could just be or TNA, excuse me. It could just be maybe her opponents aren't to par of WWE. I'm not sure, but obviously Kelani Jordan is a quality talent, and so wouldn't think you get that same vibe. But I still kind of got that same vibe here. But yeah, I didn't get the sandbagging bit, but now you had me curious, so maybe we'll look into that a little more to see if I do see something there. But yeah, in terms of the match itself, I thought, like you said, it was a very good back and forth, very evenly matched. Obviously, for Kelani to beat Indi's streak there, I didn't see that coming. I kind of figured Indi would take the Knockouts title here and kind of Kelani go back to NXT and kind of do her own thing there, because I think they kind of had to pivot pretty quickly to give someone else the Knockouts championship after recent events. But yeah, it was a good match. Wasn't perfect, but was competitive enough that it was entertaining for me. So I gave this one a 7 out of 10. Getting into the next match, and my goodness, this one had a little bit of everything. Essentially, just comparatively speaking, because we do WWE quite a bit. This was essentially a War Games match, but without the pods. I think is kind of the vibe I got from this one. But this has the Order 4 led by Mustafa Ali going up against the System led by Moose, and they dubbed this match a hardcore war rules match. So yeah, lots of spots here, but I want to say I don't think it was a spot fest, but there were certainly tons of spots and tons of moments. But KP, how'd you receive this one?
Yeah, you described it pretty much exactly how I was going to. This is literally like unpacking war games and just just taking the foundations and not having the structures or anything. Yeah, it was fun. It was a really entertaining contest. There was like you said, so much going on. I don't even know where to start with this one really, but yeah, you've got what every single person in this match who probably had a good, like a very good percentage of being involved in stuff throughout the entire matchup. Obviously, you got the individuals at the start who are going to be in there for a bit longer and showcasing themselves a bit more. But I think each person came in and provided a little bit of purpose to the matchup, helped it flow in a certain way, had a certain direction to it, and just genuinely it told a nice story between these two factions. And I think just the way they sort of like played it out, it just was a really nice flowing matchup. So kudos to whatever system they used to sort of like make it happen to be this way, because they showcase everybody as well as sort of like not really doing any over showcasing either. So yeah, definitely a testament to everybody involved just for playing their own part, I suppose I could say. But yeah, like you say, there were loads of weapons involved here. I think it was one of the rules was every single person who comes down to the ring can bring a weapon with them, and I think for the most part, I think the majority of them did. Maybe like 2 didn't. I want to say maybe 1. So yeah, it was there was a whole lot in there. Come the end of this one, we even had some thumbtacks, which we don't see in WWE, but it's nice to see elsewhere in different promotions. Like this one on TNA, thumbtacks all over the mat. And Alisha Edwards, she gets a nasty double-handed choke slam, choke bomb, whatever you call it, right onto those thumbtacks. Absolutely, brutal for her. Crazy landing, and yeah, she's just lying on these thumbtacks. We got Mustafa Ali who comes on down, and at one point he pours like a second bag of thumbtacks over Alisha Edwards, who's still on these tacks. And he goes for a 450 splash and literally just nails the thumbtacks, with his bare chest. So that was a pretty nasty landing for him as well. But just sort of like added to the intensity of the contest. You got Eddie Edwards, who he comes into the ring literally towards the very, very end now, literally the last moments here. And with obviously, his wife, Alisha Edwards, she's sort of like, just taken out at this point, but she did evade the 450. So, she's still got some sort of wherewithal about her. And Eddie wraps this barbed wire, like encasing just around his knee sort of thing, and then hits a knee with the barbed wire around it on Ali to get the win. So yeah, it was crazy. It was completely, bonkers throughout the matchup. Very fun match. Some great moments, loads of weapons being utilized from the very beginning to the very end. And yeah, it was pure carnage and just unadulterated, just madness. So yeah, I thought this one was really, really fun. I gave it 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, just the general flow of the storytelling, everyone being involved in certain ways, Agent Zero being booked to be this, kind of like this this monster guy who, just absorbs so much punishment. You got Moose coming on in to sort of like nullify that towards the very late stages as well. Mustafa Ali, the main guy of Order 4, he was in there, and obviously, he came out short in the end. I just thought everything really worked. It just ticked. It was a really fun match. Yeah, I just had so much fun watching it. 8.5 from me, and yeah. How much did you like this one? Was it as was it as great as I'm making it out to be, in your opinion, or have you got something else to say about it? What was your verdict, Nick?
I think Mrs. Foley's baby boy would give a stamp of approval to this one, especially the thumbtack spot. Props to Alisha for taking that bump. That was brutal. The cheese grater spot also was pretty gnarly as well. Um, and yeah, everyone, like you said, everyone kind of brought their own. It didn't feel like a spot fest. It felt like it was just kind of a nice flowing match, and everyone kind of got in theirs. But it didn't feel like it was very like paint by nail. Like sometimes you see those kind of spot fest matches where you just see everyone kind of moving from spot to spot. And it's very obvious, but this just felt like it had a natural progression to it. Yeah, tons of fun there. The barbed wire wrapped knee and the Boston knee party from Eddie Edwards, that was great as well. The staple gun as well. I thought that was comedic. So it just had a bit of everything. The brutalness, comedic bit, and some just all over kind of impressive spots. So I won't hit too much more on that, as most of the spots you kind of hit on already. But yeah, it was just a fun match, and very sports entertainment to the fullest, I will say. I too gave this one an 8.5 out of 10. Getting into the next match, kind of continuing that momentum of the last one. My goodness, what a match! Coming off of the WWE event, Crown Jewel. This one, I think, could rival it in that John Cena and AJ Styles match that we just saw. This one has Javon Evans going up against Leon Slater, defending his X Division Championship. Just from Javon's entrance, the dude is over even on TNA, which you love to see. And on a similar note, I just think it'll be it'll be fun to see like 20 years from now, and we're both getting up there in age, and kind of curious to see where these two men will end up, as both of these men obviously have very high ceilings. They're rare. This is awesome before the match even begins, because just like the two of us, I'm sure we kind of talked about looking forward to this match. The crowd, obviously, as well, knowing the sheer potential that this match could provide. And for me personally, was the one I was looking forward to most. As for the actual match, these two 21-year-olds going at it, KP, what'd you make of it?
Right, this is a tale of two halves, so buckle up. So, the first half, the match itself, the first 20 minutes. Wow, it was incredible. It was unbelievable. Probably one of the best 20 minutes of wrestling I've ever seen. Just generally speaking, it was absolutely incredible. Just the pure pace, energy, just the attitude between both men, just the ability to put on a matchup that was both respectful but both incredibly entertaining as well, and just completely balls to the wall from start to finish. Every single thing in those first 20 minutes near enough clicked, and it was just wonderful to watch. It was a pleasure. It really, really was. Both these guys are so complementary to each other. They're both extremely fast, agile, completely crazy with their in-ring, actions, just the dives, the general sort of presence, just everything about them, and their energy, their attitude, just the way they sort of like bounce off of each other, and they're able to sort of like make each other look even better because, someone does something, someone does something even better afterwards. You jump this high, I'll jump higher. You can do this, well, I can do it better. So it was literally like a sort of like a competition between the two of them to sort of like, be the most flashy, or be the quickest, or be the most bouncy, or, just generally, it was unbelievable, just everything that they were doing throughout this entire contest. Yeah, I could go on for a long, long time about just how much I really enjoyed those first 20 minutes. And it got to a point where those 20 minutes they didn't drag by any means necessary. It was extremely, extremely quick, and I just got lost in watching it. And then suddenly, the next thing I know, there's a bell going off, and I've got no idea why. And they said that there's a 20-minute time limit that's expired. I was like, what? There's no way. So then Santana Marella comes out, Director of Authority, and he gives us 5 more minutes. And I'm like, all right, I'm rubbing my hands here. I'm thinking, yes, let's go. Let's have another 5 minutes. I'm sure we're gonna get a crazy ending here. And then it was, I don't know. I changed this based on how I'm feeling. It was either one of the worst wrestling booking finishes to a match I've ever seen, or it was one of the most disappointing. And I think you can make arguments for both, because the match didn't deserve to have what it had happen at the end. It was an absolute all-time classic until it wasn't. Until it was completely, utterly ruined and demolished by Dark State and a little bit of cheap heat. That was essentially all this one was for. And honestly, I get it, because they're protecting both men. But come on, what are we doing? This could have been an all-time classic. You could have been talking about this matchup for years and years and years. But instead, we're going to talk about this match as what could have been. And that's a travesty. That's a damn shame, because both of these men absolutely killed it until they were killed. And it's not their fault. It was just a bad booking call. Whether it's disappointing, whether it's terrible, I don't know. We can argue about that all day. We can probably make cases for both. And you'd probably be right to say either. But I'm so gutted about how it went down. I genuinely thought this is going to be one of the greatest matches that I'd ever seen, and then it just got completely thrown down the toilet. So it's such a damn shame. It's a tale of two halves. It really, really is. But the second half overshadows so much of it, because without a good finish, or without a finish that really makes, some sort of like sense and clarity to the situation, you gotta sort of look at it as a whole package, and it really does affect it. Unfortunately for me, Darkseid, they come out, they attack both men, they just leave them to waste, and they just ruin it. The crowd were chanting as well their complete displeasure about the situation. Hell, I would have been doing it as well if I was there. So yeah, I don't know. Just the decision to give Darkseid heat over producing a match of the year candidate, a potential all-timer, I don't know. I really don't vibe with that. It didn't work for me. So yeah, really questionable choice. But oh my god, these two have to be given their flowers for the match that they put on. Up until that point, I was easily going to give this a 10 out of 10, but I'm giving it a 9 because just of what happened at the end. Unfortunately, that's all I can do. But yeah, I really wish they hadn't gone down that route. Nick, I know it's a difficult one because the matchup was absolutely incredible. How much of an issue for you was that ending? Did you think it was as bad as I'm making it out to be in terms of how much it sort of affected the matchup in general? Or do you think, maybe I should be a little bit more lenient towards this? Although, the 7,800 people or whatever it was, they sounded like they were just as unhappy as I am.
So I know that we often kind of make fun of each other for this kind of thing, but I'm going to sit on the fence on this one a little bit because I want to get into the match itself, and then we can get into the stuff at the end. Obviously, there are very different points that are both very positive and very negative. But for the actual match itself, first of all, the OG cutter from Devon from the inside of the ring off the turnbuckles, bouncing off the hardest part of the ring, and that awkward landing, to say the least. Nia Jax would sympathize with you on that one. That was a pretty nasty spot. That OG cutter to the neck breaker, that was a moment as well. And this whole match is just full of them. These two men brawling outside of the ring, and the commentary team kind of mentions a count out, and so I was thinking they were probably close to that. And then, as you mentioned, the bell rang, and I'm kind of confused, like, well, what's going on? They didn't. I don't think they mentioned the 20-minute time limit. Obviously, shades of early WWE booking with those time limit draws. But then, obviously the TNA crowd here obviously had that bit with the double winners earlier. So I think that kind of tenfolds their reaction here because they're like, no, we're not doing this twice in one pay-per-view. And so I think I get it. And like you said, I would have been very upset with just that finish alone. But then Santino Marella coming down, allowing those 5 more minutes, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, thank goodness, because after what we saw earlier, we don't need this again. And I'm not convinced the crowd wasn't going to riot at that point if they didn't get a second finish here. But yeah, these two men, I think I said this. It was either last week or the week before. We saw Javon and Leon kind of tag together. I said these two men just have so much chemistry, so much charisma with each other. I think they could do big things. I'm sure they will, possibly even on the same team at one point. Just imagining that tag team would be all time for sure. But yeah, it was an incredible match. The match itself, without the ending, obviously, is an easy 10 out of 10. This is, wrestling. This is what makes you and I so passionate about wrestling. Is matches like these until the ending. But for the ending, obviously, a very separate topic here. But I would normally dock points for a match. Because of an ending, and we try to separate the two. Sometimes it's easier to do than others. But this one, I feel like I'm okay with it because, as you kind of said, neither of these men deserve to lose, especially after that performance. And so, obviously, you are protecting both men here, and that is a way to do that. But also, I was worried because I did not think the Dark State should have lost to the Hardy Boys, and or the Hardys. And I was concerned because we had spent quite a bit of time building up Dark State. And so I was worried that that would kind of take some of the momentum away. And so, yeah, you kind of call it cheap heat here. But I feel like this is a way to kind of get them back some of that heat. And obviously, I wish they could have gone about it a different way, maybe after the match or something. But then someone has to lose. So, yeah, I get why they did it. Obviously, I would have preferred to just have the match run its course, but yeah, so that's me sitting on the fence. I get both sides to it, but hopefully we'll get them running it back eventually. I think that's just the sheer possibility of having that kind of, making my mouth water a bit just thinking about that potential. But, we'll see. But yeah, I would have obviously given it a 10 out of 10. I did drop it 0.5. So I did end up giving this one a 9.5 out of 10. It does hurt, what could have been, but I think it kind of plays it plays its part here. So I'm not as mad as I think you are, but yeah, still the contest itself that we did get, incredible. Definitely still for me match of the year candidate, even with that ending. Getting into the next match, we have the Hardys and Team 3D in a one final table match for those NXT and TNA Tag Team Championships. 11 years since their last matchup in TNA, and 25 years since their iconic TLC match at MSG. So a nice little surprise. And before the match, seeing Spike Dudley looks nothing like he used to, but we all do age eventually, right? As a reminder, the only way to win this match is both members of a team must be thrown through a table. And this part kind of got me during the match, and the commentary team did do a nice job of telling us this but this doesn't mean sent through a table on their own free will. Like we see a spot where I think it was Jeff jumps off, it lands through a table, but it doesn't hit an opponent. That doesn't count. The actual other team must offensively throw someone through the table. So Bubba and Devon, 54 and 52 respectively. Matt and Jeff, 51 and 48. So this match has 205 years of experience on this green earth. So we shouldn't be expecting a 5-star classic, but similar to the last match that we kind of did expect that from. This one had moments, and this one is a gentle reminder of all the nostalgia that they can give us for all those years of memories they gave us. KP, what'd you make of this one?
Well, first and foremost, yeah, after having, been working on these WrestleMania projects recently and literally just having watched WrestleMania 16 this past weekend for myself, seeing the ladder and the table, set up at, on the ramp, I immediately was like, all right, well, I'll see what's about to happen here. They're about to pay homage to that match. And, it was just, that set the tone. This was basically just a throwback. It wasn't going to be a technical masterpiece. It wasn't going to be an all-time contest between the four men. It was just a little bit of nostalgia, just to sort of just appease those of us who grew up watching these guys and just saw absolutely everything that they put themselves through, just for the pure entertainment of us fans. And it never gets old. It really, really doesn't. It's always a pleasure to watch, and always puts a smile on your face. But yeah, just everything about this matchup, it had a nice steady pace to it. Let's put it that way, right? It wasn't fast. It was never gonna be. Like you said, 205 years between the four men. That's an that's an extraordinary number. So it was always going to be a little bit slow, but just progressive, and just going from spot to spot, to bit, and that's absolutely fine. It didn't need to be anything else. At the end of the day, what can you expect from these four guys at this stage in their careers? This was literally the Dudleys' last match, so you got to cut them some slack in that department. So the Dudley boys, they start off really strong. To be fair, they hit a 3D on Jeff Hardy, putting him through a table. So obviously, they get the little early start there, and that's one half of the job done. Like you said, very interesting that you had to offensively put your opponents, both of them, through a table. I thought that was quite interesting, and when that was cleared up at one point, I was like, oh, okay, that's good to know, because I thought the match was literally over just then. So I was like, wow, that's fast. But yeah, like I say, going from there on, the Hardys, they fight back eventually. You got Jeff recreating that table spot, like I mentioned, on the very start here of my description. And WrestleMania 16 just came flashing back, and I say flashing back, I literally just watched it a few days ago, so very, very easy for me. But yeah, hitting that Swanton Bomb off the ladder, on the entranceway, onto Devon Dudley, through those two tables. Yeah, great. I mean, it looked like Jeff had a pretty nasty landing. I don't know if the back of his head hit the bottom rung of the ladder. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but he looked like he sort of got a little bit attended to afterwards by some medics nearby and officials nearby. But hey, look, what a spot. Just great nostalgia, just coursing right through there. Loved that. It gets to the end of the contest. Bully gets isolated in the ring, and he just gets absolutely just destroyed by these steel chairs from the Hardys. It's kind of brutal. And in one of the most sad moments, I think, in wrestling that I've seen, the Hardys just sort of watch as Bully just really slowly gets up to his feet. He knows obviously he's getting absolutely battered, and he just turns around really slowly. The Hardys both just looking at him. they both drop their chairs, and it's sort of like a moment of like recognition. Bully just accepts that he's gonna, that they're gonna lose. This is the end. This is the end of the Dudleys, and the Hardys put Bully through the table, and yeah, that's obviously the 1, 2, 3, and it's job done from there. But yeah, it was I wouldn't say it was quite Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, but it was. It definitely had some feels to it, and it was a big moment in that sense. To be fair, yeah, it hits hard. When you see the kind of moments, it just sort of like brings out the the fan in you that's watched them sort of compete over the years, and this is literally the end. So that it tends to be, in current wrestling, we are seeing a lot of these near moments now where people are retiring, they're lacing up the boots, that the generations are passing by. So yeah, this is another team that's that's done their job, and they can have a blessed retirement now, basically. But yeah, it was a fun match. It really, really was. It was a throwback, not classic at all, but it was entertaining, and it was a good last hurrah. The Dudley Boys, they unstrap their boots post match, and they then hand them to the Hardys. They all have a little bit of a moment where they just soak in the adulation from the fans. And then, yeah, that's it. Job done. The Dudley Boys head back, and the Hardys celebrate their win. So, yeah, there's a standing ovation from the audience, and rightfully so. What a career for the Dudleys, and what a last chapter for these two extreme and hardcore teams. It was good to watch. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think nostalgia's coming on in. Like I said, the match quality, it takes a little bit of a dip. It's going to, but in terms of what they did, in terms of the story they told. I loved it, and I think that's absolutely fine. Nick, what'd you make of it? It's it was bound to get that younger fan out of us, right? Did it do it for you?
Yeah, of course it did, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't hold my breath every time Jeff jumps off something. That's always been the case, though, but especially now in his later years of his wrestling career. So this is awesome chance fill the arena just kind of throughout this match, and like commentary team had kind of hit on, if you're north of 10, you know what these teams have done, kind of what they've contributed to the tag style of wrestling that we know and love today. Yeah, just nostalgia out the ass, essentially. It's kind of the aspect here, and yeah, you kind of mentioned the Sean and Rick. Obviously, not quite to that level, but not far from it. And I'm assuming, Bubba obviously is a terrific wrestler, but more so, I think he's the incredible entertainer. And I'm assuming that spot was probably his idea. Just knowing that kind of the sheer power that moment could hold, and it was beautiful. In terms of moments, I'd give this one a 10 out of 10. But in terms of like a wrestling match, we kind of mentioned that again, mentioning the Cena and AJ match, trying to separate the two. But for the match itself, obviously reliving all these greatest hits, it was just a ton of fun. And anyone, I'm kind of concerned that probably a lot of WWE fans won't or haven't watched this and absolutely should, to kind of give him that final homage to the Dudleys and the Hardys. And I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention it. I admire your restraint. This match was only missing one team, and just imagine what could have been. But alas, the final match for the Dudleys, and it was a great one, and I loved every minute of it. Gave this one an 8 out of 10. I love the after with the boots and all that, and kind of congratulating each other, and just the moments those guys share together is just truly incredible, and again contributes to why we love wrestling so much, is moments and matches like these. With that, going into the main event, we have Mike Santana, who's been chasing Trick Williams for what feels like ages, going at it once again. Trick Williams defending that TNA World Championship. Trick wants to handle his own intro, but eats a kick from Mike Santana before he can even finish. Action spilling outside of the ring and into the stands, and Trick then lands a blow with that title before we can even get the match started. But we do end up getting the match started, and Mike Santana wearing that crimson mask throughout here pretty early, and Trick's pretty dominant here to pretty much the first half, maybe even like 60, 70% of the match. Trick's pretty dominant here. And so a very interesting story being told here, obviously, with Mike's daughter on the outside of the ring as well. KP, in terms of main events, how did this one live up to? And this one obviously has quite a build to it in terms of what Trick and Mike has been chasing Trick for quite some time. But what did you make of this main event here for TNA Bound for Glory?
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain on how many, attempts it took Mike Santana to, finally get the better of Trick Williams. I feel like it's been at least 3, right? So it has been a long time coming. Like you said, there's been a lot going into this one. There's been a lot of history, and it's been a case of Trick Williams just, always being able to negotiate himself out of these particular situations and hold on to his title. So this one was very different to that. Obviously, it didn't quite go his way in the end. And yeah, the matchup started really, really well. I say the matchup started, the pre-match started really well with the brawl, like you said, going into the crowd, and we got all this sort of stuff going on with the title and everything, that sort of like led up to the actual match beginning in the end. That sounds a weird sentence, like oxymoron on that one. But yeah, it just it set the tone, it set the pace, and it set the importance for what this match was for not only Mike Santana, but for TNA. They've been wanting the TNA title back for some time now, and it's been in WWE clutches for, the past few months. And, it's not been a desperation thing, but it's been sort of a wanting to, restore things back to where they should technically be. The TNA title should be on a TNA wrestler in TNA. So, yeah, it's a very proud moment for Mike Santana to get the victory here in this one. And yeah, once that brawl does sort of like, come to an end and the match begins, Trick dominates, most of the early stages. It's very much controlled by Williams for a large part of it. Eventually, we do, get a Mike Santana comeback, and we get a really competitive back and forth match at that point. There's a lot of near falls, and it's really, really close throughout the entire contest at that point. And there's plenty of ringside action. Just it's always spilling out there, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. We've even got Mike Santana's daughter who's there on watching at ringside. Trick Williams has a couple of little moments with her and stuff. So yeah, there's even that sort of thing there as well. And yeah, then eventually we get Mike Santana who hits his second spin the block, and that's enough to earn him his TNA championship. So yeah, just really enjoyed it as a main event. This one really worked out really well for me personally. It wouldn't end there, because post match we do get little bits here and there as well. Because at the start of the night, obviously we're talking about the Gauntlet, well, the Battle Royal sort of style match earlier on. And Nick Nemeth, who is one half of those winners with Frankie Kazarian, he comes down the entranceway, and he's looking to cash in his Call Your Shot title opportunity. And then we get the lights going off, and a returning Elijah comes back, and he smashes his guitar over the head of Nemeth. So there was even that as well. That wasn't even it either, though, because Elijah tips his hat to Santana, and then once we have the camera sort of pan back to Mike in the ring, then who's behind him? Frankie Kazarian, and he attempts to cash in his Call Your Shot title opportunity, but he doesn't have the trophy. And apparently, you need to have that trophy with you when you try to cash in. So obviously, because Nick Nemeth has got it, Frankie Kazarian, he can't probably cash it in. So he then realizes what the situation is. Mike Santana catches him out and lays out Frankie Kazarian. So yeah, hits the spin the block, and then he's able to celebrate properly, having fully known that there's no more possible people to interfere and to stop ruining this moment. So yeah, it was a pretty jam-packed main event, I guess you could say. There was a whole lot going on. Like I say, it was like 3 different segments here: the brawl, the match, and the post-match stuff. So yeah, it was a whole lot to unpack. But as a main event, I thought it hit pretty well. Great moment for Mike Santana. And Trick Williams now, no longer in the clutches of that TNA World Championship. He is just an NXT superstar with, I guess, a new direction to find. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is next for Tricky Williams. I give this one an 8 out of 10. Just had a really good feel to it. Had a good flow. Did everything it needed to do. So yeah, made for a good moment for Santana especially. Nick, what did you make of the Bound for Glory main event?
Yeah, a lot of our ratings here are very similar throughout the night, which doesn't make for the most interesting content. But regardless, at least it is hitting us the same, I suppose. That never say never attitude from Santana, obviously being the ultimate story here, with the bloody face. I think that just makes for a great moment. Um, and the beginning of the match being dominated as it was so much by Trick Williams, I think makes that kind of end result, and I kind of alluded to that earlier. But how long you've been chasing this, finally to get that at this big stage, and then that moment with his daughter at the end, I think that was all great. I do think there was a bit of overbooking here with the attempted cash-ins there. I think it would have been much better to serve some other place. To me, it didn't make the moment. It kind of took away from the moment, I think. So I would have preferred that not be the case. But in terms of the actual match, yeah, I thought it was good. I will say I felt like it was missing a bit something. I think maybe the match could have had a little something more to kind of add to it. Didn't have that big main event feel. Obviously, if Santana winning here makes it feel more like a moment, but had Santana not won, obviously, I think it would have been a pretty flat main event. So I think there was something missing. I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. But a nice moment, regardless. Just not an amazing match by any means. But I did give this one a 7.5 out of 10, so just a notch below yours. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, a great moment. Just not the best match. So with that, that is TNA Bound for Glory all done here. KP, if you want to give us your kind of overall thought here, obviously our first TNA pay per view reactions video. Let us know your match of the night and your overall rating, and we'll go ahead and get this one wrapped up.
Yeah, first time doing this for TNA, and I think we started off at a pretty decent one. To be fair, just generally speaking, the show was, pretty consistent from start to finish. There were a couple of questionable choices. A match that maybe didn't quite live up to any expectations really, and just sort of like fell completely flat. But then there was a potential match of the year that also had a little bit of a sour ending to it, and there was a main event that was pretty good. There's a whole lot to take from this one. We had a couple of title changes as well from start to finish. They were sandwiching the rest of the matches in between, and then you got the hardcore war rules match, which which is completely chaotic and crazy from from the start until it ended. So yeah, just generally speaking, a lot of positives from this one. Made for a really interesting and captivating watch. So yeah, can't really complain on that front. But just a couple of little things that I would have loved to have had done a little bit differently. And just maybe a little bit of a shame on those particular situations. But generally speaking, solid show. Had a lot of fun watching it, and I thought it was thoroughly entertaining. So not bad, at all. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. That's an average of all my ratings put together. So fair play to TNA. Put on a thoroughly enjoyable show, and had some definite big talking points, whether good, bad, ugly. There's lots to discuss on this one. So, Nick, how did you rate this Bound for Glory? Is as high as me there, or maybe a little lower, a little higher? Just generally speaking, what was your match of the night? Because mine was Javon Evans and Leon Slater, even though it did have that little bit at the end.
Yeah, to no surprise, similar rating, gave it a 7.25. But yeah, generally speaking, it definitely a topical pay per view. I think that's 100% fair to say. You have a little bit of everything. You have the nostalgia, you have the hardcore war rules match, which was just brutal. The Gauntlet match, and of course, match of the night for me has to be Javon and Leon. Obviously, killed it even with that ending. So won't repeat everything you've said because basically is the same. But yeah, this was a ton of fun, and pretty consistent quality pay per view. So very entertaining, and if we do end up doing these down the road, I think this one will be kind of hard to top. So definitely a nice little way to dip our toes in the water there. So with that, Bound for Glory reactions video all done here. If you agree with anything we put out there, please let us know in the comments below. Or if you disagree, we also love to hear that. We're open to that constructive criticism. Feel free to give us a like and a subscribe as well. That helps our video out tremendously, as we've been quite busy over the last couple months trying to get out more consistent content, and kind of like this video, trying to get in some new things as well. in anything we can to broaden our wrestling horizon, if you will. So, with that, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.